The municipality of Tel Aviv Jaffa often likes to brag about its 137 kilometers of bike lanes, which seems like a true figure. But if you ask most Tel Avivis, or at least the subset of Tel Avivis who bike, scoot, skate, roll and or blade around town, they would all tell you the same thing. Tel Aviv's bike lanes pretty much stink, and there's simply not enough of them. In what seems like a barely researched, freeform, postmodern, artistic experiment involving existing Tel Avivi streetscapes and a bike lane-shaped dildo, the municipality has created several different types of atrocities, which we will go through here today in a kitschy, listicle form. Number 6. Even Gvirol.
Also known as Ibn Gabirol, if you're a nerd and like your Hebrew to stay nice and classical. Even Gvirol is a really main street, with 3 lanes of traffic in each direction, tons of restaurants, shops, schnitzel baguette stands, and public transit. Not to mention, future site of the up-and-coming Green Line. It crosses the entire northern half of central Tel Aviv, splitting it in twain, with the Old North on the left, I mean in the west, and the New North in the east, as well as crossing over the Yarkon River at its northern end. Seems like the perfect place to give bikes their own separate lane away from the busy traffic, doesn't it? And that's exactly what the municipality thought too, sort of. These 2 painted lines, the ever so slightly darker bricks in the sidewalk, the bike symbols, and their usually ignored one-way arrows are Even Gvirol's pathetic excuse for a bike path. Most of the time, I find myself narrowly avoiding crashing into dogs who can't understand the bike path, people who don't want to understand the bike path, passengers getting on line 25, passengers getting off line 25, and the occasional cat, to name a few. There's way too many bus stops made out of transparent glass right in the middle of the bike path, with no warning. And every once in a while, the path just plain disappears with no warning either, and then my life basically turns into a Shuka Carmel deathmatch free-for-all. So, all in all, I'd say a pretty bad experience.
Number 5. Reines.
Well, the municipality's planning and engineering departments, assuming those exist, must have said to themselves, a shared path for pedestrians and cyclists doesn't really work, does it? And so they came up with this. Now, instead of running over old ladies doing their Friday grocery shopping, you can get doored by cars or run over by line 66. A few years ago, there was at least one positive thing I could say about this bike lane, and that was that it used to continue through the intersections. But it doesn't even do that anymore, so I have nothing positive to say about it. To be honest, I think this bike lane is no safer than having no bike lane at all, making it absolutely worthless.
Number 4. Pinkas.
When the municipality came around to bike pathing Pinka Street, they finally realized that maybe people don't want to get run over by buses. So they found a street with almost no buses running through it. And better yet, they moved the bike path over to the right side of the parked cars this time and added these little bumblebee bumps for kawaii effect, with the added side effect of usually preventing cars from getting on the bike path. It still doesn't save you from getting doored though, and in fact I suspect it even worsens the chances of that happening. You see, Israelis are not very used to the idea of bike paths, especially not ones with actual bike traffic in them. But they are used to making sure that the road is clear before exiting the car. And so now that there's no dangerous road next to me, Israeli car passengers won't be as compelled to look before opening those pesky doors of theirs. Bonus! The bike path turns back into a pumpkin, into a road or a sidewalk every once in a while, as usual.
Number 3. Rothschild Boulevard.
The Rothschild Boulevard bike path shows that the municipality, in its continuous pondering of the philosophical question of what is a bike path anyway, sometimes decided on the easy way out, and said that a bike path can be, in the minimalist case, just a tiny bit of paint on an existing boulevard. And so, the Rothschild Boulevard concrete footpath was turned into the Rothschild Boulevard concrete footpath and bike path. And with all the time and money they've saved, the municipality's staff could now take the rest of the day off and go to the beach. It's a significant improvement over the paths we've seen before. There's no risk of getting hit by cars, there's no risk of getting doored, and it's wider than one bicycle each way, so you can overtake slow tourists. Amazing! And being a garden city trademark means that there are plenty of other boulevards around town that got the similar kind of treatment with varying degrees of success. But the Rothschild Boulevard bike path is single-handedly the most important of them all, because it's the only one that cuts through the southern part of central Tel Aviv. However, being just two painted lines on an existing boulevard means that the path is often abruptly blocked by kiosks and cafes, such as this one or that one, or confused techies when they emerge from the office for lunch. Being on the same grade as the pedestrian path fuels this confusion, and the kiosks are a historic, touristy feature, so the municipality is not especially keen on removing them. Having to avoid techies by day, drunks by night, kiosks and cafes all the time, as well as tree branches that stick out low above the path, make the Rothschild Boulevard bike path feel like some sort of a 3D obstacle course.
Number 2. הרכבת.
This is the Harakevet Street bike path, which is a fairly common type of design for newer Tel Avivi bike paths. And it's simply awful because, hey, wait a second, it's grade separated from both the sidewalk and the road, it's wide enough to overtake, and there's no parking, so there's no chance of getting doored by a car. So have we finally found it? The perfect Tel Avivi bike path? Well, almost. Like most types we've seen before, this one still has the tendency to disappear near intersections or bus stops where they exist. And worst of all, the municipality often builds bike paths where they're cheap and or easy to build. Like, for example, around a newly reconstructed roundabout where there's no other bike paths feeding into it, or in small quiet streets in Neve Sha'anan, where the residents won't, or, maybe really just can't complain about it, or up in street number 2040, which is still unnamed, that's why it has a number and not an actual name. And there's literally nothing there but a bike path and lots of sand. So Tel Aviv Jaffa's bike paths aren't really connected to each other. They don't really make up a network. And so there's very little trips that you can make that wouldn't require you to bike on the road with the big boys and risk being hit by a car, or ride on the sidewalk with the little guys and risk being hit by a pedestrian.
The dry Israeli law says that you must dismount from your bike whenever the bike path ends, because riding on the sidewalk is forbidden. But as we've clearly seen, this would mean getting off your bike every few hundred meters, just for 2 or 3 meters, and then getting back on your bike again. This would be a big, energy-wasting hassle to do, and needless to say, I have never seen anyone ever do this in real life. Even the municipality itself recognizes that this rule is ridiculous and allows cyclists to ride on the sidewalk when there is no bike path. This rule doesn't apply to all vehicles though. E-cyclists and e-scooterists still have to ride on the road and risk getting hit by cars, because if they ride on the sidewalk, they risk getting hit by fines. Why should cyclists ride under the constant threat of such unrealistic and barely enforceable rules? This would be like asking motorists to get out of their cars and start pushing whenever they reach an intersection. Let's imagine a world in which a cyclist can safely cross the entire city without getting off their bikes, without the risk of getting hit by cars, and without endangering pedestrians. Sounds like a dream, right? Well, we do in fact have one path that is almost exactly like this.
Number 1. The beach.
Welcome to the beach bike path. It's divided into several segments, each with its own design and hazards, separated from each other by narrow strips of promenade. And its central stretch, from Fleischmann to Jaffa, is arguably the best bike path in Tel Aviv and Jaffa. It's completely separated from both car and pedestrian traffic. It's wide, it doesn't stop, and it even has dedicated traffic lights for cyclists, allowing pedestrians to safely cross the road without getting run over. It is the closest thing we have in Tel Aviv to London's cycle superhighways or to Copenhagen's regular bike paths, and it's the best we've got. When cyclists talk about how this city needs proper bike infrastructure, this is what they mean. This is the kind of bike path that I'd like to see all across the city. Infrastructure like this would make cycling a much more attractive option than it is today, would take cars off the road, reduce the ever-worsening crowdedness of our public transit, and keep both cyclists and pedestrians safe.
Can we build this in every street in the city? Of course not. But if we stop designing our streets for cars and agree to sacrifice some street-level parking spaces, it would certainly be possible to build this kind of high-quality path in more places and create a real and usable bike path network. After all, Tel Aviv could be a great city for cyclists. It's mostly flat, it has the right kind of climate most of the year, and it has the density to support it. All that's missing is some proper infrastructure.